Welcome to Season 2 of Pod Practice, where Mama Bird alumni Quinn Feiner, Mikey Lund, and myself, Alex Atkins, talk about Ultimate from the perspective of players and coaches. We want to engage with you, so please reach out, say hi, ask a question, give some feedback. We look forward to talking with you. To reach out, follow us on Instagram or YouTube at podpractice_pod. Listen on Spotify at Pod Practice, or email us at show@podpracticepod.com. I hope you enjoy this episode.
What's up, Charlie?
Hello.
Yo.
What's up?
Hi. Sorry I'm late, guys. I have this very cool new Ultiworld neon
really?
logo to put up.
Nice. Those are cool.
Who made it for you? Did you get it?
Some online thing.
Oh. Do you know who Amy Leader is?
I do know Amy, yeah.
She made that one for me.
No kidding. Does she like makes neon stuff?
Yeah. Sean Keegan has a pony one.
That's cool. I had no idea. I would have asked her.
Have you ever done a podcast before, Charlie?
No, that's my first time.
Yeah, I think the main objective is to create some clickbait that hopefully Yuli and Brody will talk about on their podcast.
Oh, gosh.
That's the first thing that comes up if you Google on YouTube, like Charlie Eisenhood.
So like me versus Brody kind of thing?
No,
I have to look at
you
this.
versus Yuli.
Well,
it's like
it is sort of
Oh, yeah.
Yuli responds.
Oh, my God. Hilarious.
I think first things first, what we like to do with our guests is just, go over the background. So if you want to give us a little history of your life and how you got to this point up to Ultiworld and doing everything that you do in disc sports, I think that would be lovely for all the listeners.
Sure, and I can go into further detail if you want, but I'll give you the
we
more
love
abridged,
detail on
the
this
abridged format.
podcast.
Well, all right, I'll start then. My uncle Adam Ford has been playing Ultimate for like 40 years or something. At one point he played a season on Machine, so he was like pretty good back in the day, and used to play in Albuquerque for a long time, back when Albuquerque had like a pretty good club team. This was, back in the like 80s, 90s time. So when I was a little kid, he was always trying to get me to play Ultimate. So, we would throw and he would be like, you should play. And, growing up in Albuquerque, there wasn't really anywhere for me to play, like as a kid. And I wasn't really interested. I played basketball. I played, later on, I ran track and did some other sports, tried baseball. But basketball was always my first love, and I played all the way up through my junior year of high school. But in the spring, I was running track, and I didn't find it very fun. Like I just was like having to run with no purpose, and that was not for me. And eventually, I was like, we were playing, casually with my friends, throwing an aerobie around, and then playing like, just like very simple, no rules pickup with however many people, like a lot of people maybe played when they were in middle school and early high school. And I think I'm trying to remember, we signed up to go play in a tournament. We were like getting kind of into it, and we're like, let's go play in this tournament that's happening in Albuquerque. So we sign up, and we play against the like Albuquerque pickup team, and we kind of gave them a game. I don't really remember what happened. I remember there was like a really bad travel call that made us really mad.
Did you know the rules at this point?
We knew the rules enough. Yeah. I think we were probably still like we were traveling a lot and things like that. And somebody came up to me at the tournament and said, hey, are you a high school team? And we were like, well, sort of, we go to this high school and we're here, but we don't have an official team. Yeah. And Jerry was like, hey, if you want to start a real team, I would love to coach you. So then it was in my mind like, oh, well, we should just start a team. So I went to the school administrators and I was like, hey, we want to have a real team. We want to get PE credit for it and like have this be a real sport. And
This is like the origins of Charlie's entrepreneurial spirit, I feel like.
That's what I was thinking. Just straight to the administrators.
my entrepreneurial spirit goes way back, though. I was selling lemonade as like a 3-year-old. Maybe not quite that early, but for a while when I was in 8th grade, they banned sugary soda in our school like bookstore. So I was bringing in every day like cases of soda and selling to students and teachers. I had teachers be like, "Hey, bring me a Sunkist." And so I had a cooler of ice, and I was selling like 24-ounce wild
running
cherry
the black
Pepsis.
market. It's like,
Yes. So I did that for long enough that I started to get worried I was going to get in trouble for it, and then I shut it down. But so anyway, we start the high school team, and that was like, I guess we played my junior and senior year were like official school team. Worked with somebody in Albuquerque to set up a state tournament for the like 3 or 4 teams that there were. We went to high school Western Nationals right before that got killed off. And so that was awesome. That was up in Boulder. And so then I'm starting to get a taste of like higher level play. I played club in Albuquerque, went to I spent a lot of time playing Ultimate in Colorado growing up. Went to Grub back in the day, which is just an amazing tournament.
What was
I
the
still
last
have
year
great
you went,
memories.
do you know?
2006 or 7. So it's been a long time.
I played it 2004 or 5, and then the next time I played wasn't until like maybe 13 or 14. So we did not play against each other.
Mike, we might have played against each other. I think I played 13 or 14 around there with some random Four Cons mixed teams. Yeah.
Probably smashed your ass when you were a little kid.
When I was 12.
Anyway, sorry, Charlie.
No, it's fine. So, that's basically how I got started playing. And then I played at NYU, relatively straightforward college career, lost in the game to go to nationals my senior season when I was a captain. And, at this point, Skyd magazine had started to exist.
Yeah.
But I remember, I don't know, we probably got disrespected in some article. And I was like, these clowns don't know what the hell they're talking about. Brian Jones writing back in the day. And I throughout college, although I didn't study journalism, I was doing a lot of journalism stuff as kind of my side projects and as my summer gigs.
Yeah, I actually have your LinkedIn profile up and see that you majored in economic theory.
Yes. So I was in the econ department. I took one journalism class when I was in college, when I was in Argentina studying abroad. But from when I was a freshman, I was writing for a new student blog at NYU that kind of became a competitor to the student newspaper. And then I worked at the Albuquerque Journal for a summer. I worked in DC at a political blog for a summer. And so I was kind of like, journalism was the thing I was finding myself really interested in professionally. And then my senior season, I was like, we don't have a news website for Ultimate. Like, Ultimate needs a news website. And so I wanted to start one. And I took a job right out of college, a fellowship out at NYU's campus in Abu Dhabi. So I lived out there for a year right after I graduated. And while I was there, I was working on a business plan for a Frisbee website, basically. And I remember I was home in the US over Christmas and was trying to come up with a name. And I was like sitting at the kitchen table with my mom, and we were like workshopping names. And Ultiworld just seemed like the best one. So I said, all right, let's do it. And I bought the URL for ultiworld.com. And then kind of it all got put on the back burner for a while.
What year is this? At 2011 is when you're brainstorming?
Yes. And then into 2012. So I was still living in the Middle East in 2012. I came back in May or June of that year. I went on a big road trip with a buddy out west. Was kind of just bumming around New York City for a little while, living in my then girlfriend's apartment, kind of just like she was very nice to not kick me out of her house, to be honest.
While you're starting this business of
yes,
the most fringe sport on the planet.
That's right. And so, I hadn't really gotten it started. And I remember it was July 4th, 2012, when the news came out that the Connecticut Constitution were suing the AUDL in its first season as a league. And I thought to myself, either I start this and like this is where I begin doing Ultiworld as a thing, or I'm going to do something else. And so I was like, well, I'm going to just do it. So I called up the people at the Constitution and got quotes, tried to get in touch with the league, put together a story about this, lawsuit happening within this, new semi-pro Ultimate League. And I posted it on my personal blog, eisenhood.wordpress.com, which I think is dead.
I was about to type it in there.
You could check. I don't know. Still, I think I deleted it. And I posted the link to, RSD and the Ultimate subreddit. And I got, a few thousand clicks. And I was like, wow, like this might really be something that is interesting enough to be a business. And so that was the birth of Ultiworld. Spent a weekend with a friend, like getting high and working on the initial website. Built
Logo
off
design?
of like a crappy WordPress like template that we bought online. And like with no coding experience, we kind of hacked it together with some very questionable coding decisions that like there was no security. We like opened it up completely. If you wanted to hack the website, it would have been super easy. But we got it put together and kind of like styled it off of the popular internet look of the time with the big 4 banner pictures at the top.
Yeah.
If you remember old Gawker or anything like that. And that's kind of how it got started. So
when you were brainstorming this, you weren't necessarily even inspired by other media outlets like Skyd or Next Gen at the time is on my list of things to ask you about. Was it was purely just because you saw a void and you were interested in doing it?
I would say yes, the latter. I felt like there was a lack of like news reporting and timely coverage of Ultimate. And hard to say that I wasn't influenced by Skyd existing at all, I wonder, would I have been similarly motivated to create something had there been nothing? But it was just I don't know. It was a time in Ultimate that year where there was just so much new energy. You had the AUDL, Next Gen, Ultiworld all basically started at the same time.
And MLU wasn't too far after.
MLU was 6 months later.
Yeah.
Because Jeff Snyder peeled off from the AUDL after that season and started MLU. And Skyd was only a year or two old.
Right.
So you had all of this happening. It would be really interesting to think about, like, why was that the moment? Like, maybe just far enough past the recession that people were feeling that kind of energy, and like live streaming was starting to become commercially possible for smaller streamers. Like the internet was starting to make it a little bit easier to become a content creator. So there's a lot of things going on at that same time. But yeah, I think I was not like, oh, I want to try to do Skyd. I was like, I want to try to create a website that makes Skyd obsolete. And I had been very competitive with the student newspaper when I worked at NYU Local, and was then also extremely competitive with Skyd. And like when they would get some good story or some scoop, I would be super pissed that we didn't get it. And that was like a real motivating factor early on.
So at what point did you start streaming?
We did our first stream in 2013, I think at College Nationals. And I'm trying to remember. Go ahead.
Was that part of like your original plan? Like when you saw that Next Gen was able to do it? Because I always kind of wonder, would the AUDL exist or would these leagues exist without like Kevin Minderhoot starting that and then you shortly after following suit and kind of carving that path?
Yeah, I feel like the AUDL. I'm trying to remember when Next Gen had its first year. Was it 2011?
Yeah.
So I wonder.
But they weren't. I don't think they were streaming the first year though. They were just.
Yeah, I think they just filmed it and then put it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the AUDL probably would still have happened in some way. But I do think that the streaming concept was like clearly pioneered by what Kevin was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, looking back, they were so far ahead of their time in terms of what they were like attempting to do and what they did. And I mean, there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses with all of it now, as with anything when you're 10 years in, away from it. But like they legit got professional grade encoding equipment and like had a pretty significant setup. Like I think the problem was that they were just too early with too big of an ambition, and like the market wasn't there to support what they were trying to do at the time. But like what Kevin was doing was amazing, and who even knows like how far along they could have gotten if he'd decided to stick with it. Probably what would have happened is he would have built out an amazing truck and then been like, well, forget doing Frisbee. I can make way more money streaming basketball games or whatever other thing. And so, yeah, I think I'm trying to remember the circumstances of why we ended up streaming at College Nationals. It was maybe that there was some friction with Next Gen and USA Ultimate, so they weren't going to stream. So there was going to be no stream. And so I'm now I can't remember if we streamed New York Empire games first or if we streamed College Nationals first. It was right around the same time doing the same kind of thing.
And you had to figure that out on the fly. Did you?
I knew nothing.
That seems like kind of like, part of the story is that you really just capitalized on opportunities that presented themselves. And even if I think that's something that's pretty cool, like even with little experience with the, website or the streaming, like where that would probably scare a lot of people off. Like you're just able to jump in and do it anyway. And even if it, obviously you're going to learn a bunch as you do it, but I think that's, really cool for a lot of people that struggle to get out there and jump into something that is a little bit unknown. I also wonder, I have a question that I've been thinking about while you were talking, like what it was like then and also now. What allows you to persevere through? I feel like when you're in Ultimate, especially doing a lot of these things, there's a lot of people that are like, well, it's not big enough. Like you can't, like I imagine, maybe your parents or your friends when you were starting up Ultiworld were like, you're not just going to get like a job in New York being like, an accountant. Like it's much more secure, like people that care about your like, well-being want you to do like that kind of stuff. And like what allowed you to persevere and be someone who like went for what you wanted to do in this space rather than
and like immediately after college.
Yeah.
So all great questions. I was very lucky. An early partner in Ultiworld who eventually quit after about a year because he wanted to have a career.
Yeah.
Very reasonable. Still friends, all good. But he was tutoring at the time. And so I needed to make money. And like Ultiworld wasn't going to be the way that I was going to make money at the beginning. So he put me in touch with them and I went in and took the, various practice SAT sections they gave us and did a mock lesson and whatever. And I got hired to teach high school kids SAT and ACT. I still do that all these years later. But it's just a thing I do because I like to have a little side job and it's fun for me. But for 5-6 years, that's literally how I paid my bills. So I actually had to
would crush the
essentially
SAT
work
today,
2 jobs. Oh yeah. Yeah. I actually took it when they changed the test. I took it in 2016 or something and got a perfect score.
Oh yeah.
But like, that's kind of
Let's
the
go,
job, is to be
Charlie.
good at it.
Yeah. That's also when I had to take it to go to high school, to go to college, and I did not get a perfect score.
So yeah, I was working 3 nights a week, like 3:30 to 9:30 tutoring. And, luckily I worked for a company. I was teaching mostly in, New York City and Westchester County, which is north of New York. And it's a fairly lucrative job in this area. So I was able to work up, the company was still pretty young at the time. And so I'm one of the longest tenured tutors there at this point. And, it was enough, right? I lived in Brooklyn. I had roommates. I had a cheap apartment. I later lived with my girlfriend, now wife, for a year or 2 years we had 2 other roommates. So it was a 3-bedroom, and splitting rent with her, that helped a lot. So I was able to kind of just have low expenses because I lived cheaply in Brooklyn before it was really expensive to live in the parts of Brooklyn that I lived in, and make ends meet. So, I wasn't making a ton of money, that's for sure. And I didn't take any money from Ultiworld until 2019, I think.
Wow.
Maybe 2018.
Really?
So like 6 years, at least 6 or 7 years. Just everything going back into the company.
Would you be okay without your tutoring money?
No.
You still that
I would have had to.
That.
That's a good question.
Well, like now.
did I have money? Oh, now? Yes, I'd be fine. I mean, I make a pretty modest salary especially for New York City. But I could stop tutoring, no problem.
Well, that's awesome.
But I didn't have like a lot of money. I had some money saved from my fellowship, and I was able to pay down my student loans pretty quickly, so that helped. I didn't have like those extra expenses. And New York City is expensive, but you also don't have to pay for a car. And like there's other things you don't have to pay for that people don't necessarily think about. But I didn't have like trust fund backup, which, it can be really helpful for someone who wants to try to start a business right out of college.
For sure.
But it's not like my parents wouldn't have helped me if I was like going to be homeless or something. But
yeah,
I didn't have I had to work to make money. But I've been working since I was 14, and I was like legally able to work. So working was just kind of what I've always liked to do.
Did you have a plan B if Ultiworld didn't pan out?
Not exactly. I never really thought about like what would I do if I wasn't doing that. I probably would have tried to apply to do journalism at some blog or at New York Times or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what I would have done.
I have a ton of questions about the business of Ultiworld. I actually maybe want to pat you on the back a little bit here first, though. Have you ever sat back and thought about what you've accomplished, and also just in terms of like maybe would you? Well, I'm not going to ask you to say this, but in some ways, you might be the MVP of the sport of the last decade in terms of its growth. Like, what would USA Ultimate look like today without Ultiworld? Have you ever thought about that? Like, you stream all of their, well, not every single game, but like the ones that we watch, like I know you produced the ESPN stream last year, I believe, right?
Yep.
But generally, like, I don't prefer to watch those over Ultiworlds, like, because of the camera angles and everything. But yeah, just to go back to the question itself, have you ever tried leveraging that or thought about that at all?
Well, what do you mean by leveraging that?
Well, I don't know exactly, but have you ever...
Mikey's quoted on one of the last pods as saying, Charlie, MVP of Ultimate, potential MVP, candidate for MVP of Ultimate in the last decade.
Yeah, without even having to play a single game. I don't know how much you've played in the last decade, but...
I hold my own in the summer leagues around here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
But what would they do without Ultiworld? As far like, would they have a product that would people like would the general Ultimate population be as inclined to stick with Club, for instance, if they didn't have this exposure that you give them?
I don't know. It's an interesting question to think about. How would it look different, especially from like a streaming and media standpoint? If Ultiworld had never existed, like, would Skyd still be the thing, or would they have gotten burned out because they weren't making any money? Because like we had to go through many years of not making any money, and then a lot of people not making very much money for a long time, and now we're like getting to the point where I feel comfortable that people make enough money to not quit, but barely. Right. So like the idea that this is some kind of lucrative business to be in is not right, which is why I think it sort of like naturally ends up being it's a natural monopoly only because it's so small that you can't like there's not room for multiple companies doing broadcasting and media in Ultimate Frisbee. Right. So to look back and think about how it's grown, I mean, it's pretty amazing. I don't think I would have I think when I started Ultiworld, the internet was very different. At the time, everybody thought you could just make a cool website, get clicks, and make money on advertising. And there were a lot of businesses that they were built around that. You look at the time, Gawker, Huffington Post, BuzzFeed was starting around then. And Ben Smith's book, Traffic, which chronicles that time, and then, from like 2007 when I started college through, now today, and how things changed, is fascinating if anybody's interested in reading about sort of like online media and the ecosystem. And you look today, and BuzzFeed is on the verge of bankruptcy, and Gawker no longer exists in any meaningful way. And the idea of making money from having a general interest website that makes money from advertising is completely dead. It's not possible. It was in hindsight ridiculous to think that Ultimate Frisbee would have had enough traffic to make money that way, besides anything as a side project, right? Like if it was just me doing my little blog and like making a couple $100 a month from Google ads, sure. But there was no way to make that work. So the key thing was to recognize that people were willing to pay to watch video, and then creating better and better product to make that fleshed out in such a way that like it brought together people who are interested in reading content, watching video, access to the Discord and discussion, into what essentially it is today. But even that's gone through many iterations. We used to sell one-off video packages to one tournament or one game even. And then in 2017, I think we launched subscriptions.
Yeah.
And then, have iterated that a bunch over time. But it's interesting because the internet has gone from thinking, let's be as broad and get as many clicks as possible, to only the winners get advantage from that now. NewYorkTimes.com, the other just like mega websites, and then being really small is the other advantage, right? So you have your Netflixes and your just giant companies that are doing subscription product. And then you have niche.
Yeah, and you have a very targeted audience.
Yes.
A couple questions about the video stuff, or maybe requests.
Okay.
And I may not be a big enough audience for you as one guy, but I am a coach. I imagine most of your viewers are players or coaches. First gripe or request: can you add a customizable function to the video player so I can fast forward by any iteration other than 10 seconds. I just cannot study film in 10-second increments.
Great question. I believe this has already been requested.
I actually may have posted that in your Discord.
Okay,
at
perfect.
One point.
The company that we work with that sort of does the back end hosting of the video and playback, their player has been getting improved and improved. And I think changing the option for the time jump is one of the things that we have requested. And I don't have any idea when that will happen, but
there was also like
5 seconds?
5 seconds would be tolerable. 10 seconds.
If you want to be able to decide whether it's like 1, 3, 5, 10.
I would love that. And I'm also I'm a software developer, so I'm picky about things like that. But
he wants to key mod everything. He wants 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
I do.
seconds
and
with all different keys at one time.
any offline downloadable. I know you have different packages, and I'm probably not privy to all of them. But here's an idea though that I would pay a premium for. I will tell you, I usually have the all access subscription. I did downgrade, I think, to standard recently, or maybe even the mini. I apologize.
That's all right. We appreciate you staying subscribed at all.
Yeah, I do want to support. But if you had the all 22 equivalent, give me if there was a package, if you had drone footage, I'm sure you're trying to get more drone footage, but give me the wide angle. I don't give a fuck about highlights. I don't give a shit about pull play. I know I don't know anything. I don't know anything about what you need to do to make a good product, but I know what I want is to just see that angle where I can analyze everything. Can you make
you want a high end zone? You want a high end zone angle, basically.
Yeah, and
yeah,
and it doesn't have to be targeted towards your main audience. Give me the coach's package.
Okay,
yeah, the coach package. Interesting.
I have thought about this. I'm just not sure it's a big enough market. That's the question. Because so, Alex and Quinn, would you also prefer that angle of film, and would you pay a premium to watch it? If you could have all 14.
The all 14.
Yes, I think I would. Depends on what the premium is, but I definitely
Sure.
I don't know if I'm paying a premium for drone footage, because I see what you're saying. You're weighing basically the cost of how much it would be to get this angle for all your games and stuff, and how many people would pay, and would you be making money off that, or would it just make Mikey happy? but now all of a sudden Ultiworld is losing money so that Mikey can analyze a couple more games.
Come on, coaches. We all need to send Charlie a DM or something.
It also means that there's a need for drone flyers. We need more people we need more of a supply of people that can fly a drone, and then will sacrifice their time to videotape the games with them.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, we finally brought a drone in to production in 2022, I think. We had it the first time at College Nationals when it was in California in the winter. So that was late 2021, because it was the post-COVID,
right.
College Nationals.
Yeah, NorCal.
And I've known the drone technology has been around a long time now, over a decade, but it looked bad. It was really expensive. There were all these reasons to not do it. And finally it got to the point where it's okay, the quality of the footage is finally there, and the price has come down to a point where it was reasonable. So we rented a drone for that tournament, and it was just immediately this is the thing that this has been missing, right? This is the angle that we have needed to have in Ultimate, and we haven't had, and now we have it. Because it's like Spider Cam in the NFL, but we can't install Spider Cam. So what can we do?
Spider Cam,
we can fly a drone.
Yeah.
Sure. You can get a little higher. You can get that,
It gives you such a pleasurable experience when
it's
you
so
see
nice.
Everything. It's such a different way of viewing the sport. And the other thing is, it's so easy. Once you figure it out, like you just put it on the one like axis in the middle of the field and you just go forward and back with the pole.
It's true.
It's so easy. I imagine that people, I think that getting your own drone and stuff is probably like the biggest thing stopping people. But once you get them, you'd be so valuable.
I think teams could consider it for sure. That the challenges of drone is like some people are like, I want to watch the whole game from the drone angle.
That's me.
Right.
Give me the drone package, Charlie.
I get that. The problem is you lose connection to who the players are, and like it's good from like a game tape strategic analysis standpoint, but it's not very good for like feeling like you got to
be better fans then. I can tell who's who still in the drone.
No, I see what you're saying. You need different shots of like the shot that zooms in on the player's face, and then when they're scoring and all this stuff.
If you watch, I was watching the Bills Chiefs game last night, and I was commenting to some folks who were here. I was like, look, every time they're in between plays, it's tight shots of the quarterbacks and the coaches. And then maybe if somebody, when the guy missed the field goal, it was like that. Then we had to see him for the rest of the game. Like head and hands on the sideline, devastated.
As soon as someone makes a bad play,
put
the camera on them and keep it on them every break. Put it on them. But it's true. Like every time there's no action, you're zoomed in on someone's face, and it's like maybe they'll do something too.
Super tight shots of the star players and the coaches. That is NFL broadcasting. And they have 35 million people watch that game last night or something.
I would prefer to watch the all-22 angle. I'll be honest.
There you go.
I want to know. I want to know. I want to learn about football. I don't want to see.
You're an outlier, Mike. No. I think you're an outlier here. I don't think everyone wants to watch.
Give me the T Swift cam. That's all I really need.
Yeah. Or I've seen this is my one tangent. If you go on like the Prime Video and they have like the 3 different ways you can watch the game, and I happened to stumble upon the Dude Perfect version, which is like them playing like the stupidest game. It's like honestly, I didn't understand what the fuck it was. It was like Dude Perfect playing like silly games, like while the game is like on in the background. I didn't really get the whole point of it and why Prime Video like chose that way, and like why Dude Perfect. Like I didn't think they were. It's so weird. It's so odd. But another way that I've seen. My roommate likes to watch Call of Duty a lot, and they do like a watch party version of where they basically get this guy who used to be like the best player, and it's like him and like his 2 friends, and they just sit in this like really nice room, and it's like them, the game on next to them, and them just like talking about the game. And I guess people watch that just because of like who he is, and it's just like an entertaining to watch. So maybe the watch party is like a new
and you got the Manning brothers doing their thing,
right?
ESPN,
it's like that, yes.
Casts.
I'm into that. I like the Manning brothers.
Interesting.
I've thought about that. Like alt streams for big games at nationals. That's definitely like on the radar of things we'll do in the future.
Yeah, I've dabbled in the Manning cast, but then I think I like the professional commentators more is what I've decided. Like I like the fact like maybe the Manning brothers will get better at it too, but it's just like not as engaging to me. Like, or maybe I'm just used to the professionals and how they call it. But for some reason, I always go back to watching the guys on
the Manning cast thing makes for great social media clips and bad full-time viewing.
Yeah, because there's always like these awkward 10-second pauses of any volume at all, and it's really hard to watch when there's just no volume at all. It's really awkward just to watch it like that, and that's the issue.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. It's clippable. That's a good point. It's just clips of like the player saying one thing, and
or like they react to some crazy play, and like
right,
or that like Eli will be like, they're going to do X, Y, and Z in this situation, and they do exactly that. That's always cool to see. Elite players having insight into the game. That's often something you don't get on the broadcast from the color commentators.
It's true.
How long did it take you to develop the commentating skills?
I mean, it's just been like all of it. It's been just me.
You just
practicing.
Did you suck at first? Do you remember?
Sure. I think Somebody said like I used to be horrible. Somebody told, I forget who said that to me, but they were like, you were awful when you started, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the thing
need
is
those
that
people.
I love sports. Okay, I love Ultimate, and I also love sports, and I love playing and consuming sports content. I am a big 49ers fan. I'm like locked in. I was very stressed this weekend,
Ooh.
but I watch the NFL, I watch NBA, I watch Major League Baseball. And I have been steeped in watching and how those broadcasts are produced, what it sounds like, what it looks like, what the graphics are like, how they go in and out of commercial breaks. And so that has, influenced the way that I think about how Ultimate should be produced. And I think a lot of people in Ultimate aren't that way. They don't necessarily want to watch and consume other sports a lot of the time. And so I think, it's been an advantage in some ways to be able to step up and say, yeah, we can do these streams for ESPN3 because I know what it's supposed to look like.
Right.
I know what it's supposed to sound like. And so, my dad was in TV for like 30 years. He was a meteorologist, like local meteorologist on television.
Oh, well, can I
So
find a clip of that?
yes, I was looking the other day and it's hard to find stuff
What
of weather,
channel?
like
Not as
KOB
clippable
channel
as the
4.
Manicast.
No, unfortunately
Yeah,
not. But
alright.
my dad was he
Okay.
was a hilarious guy. He used to do like I think one time they used to do these little side pieces, and he did one on like trying to take me skiing when I was like 3 years old.
Oh, that's what
So
we
they
need
have
a
like
clip
the
of.
speed footage of them
Yeah.
putting all the like clothes on me and
That's
getting
sick.
me in all my ski suit, and I'm like look like the Michelin Man. So I have a little bit of that. Just I don't know if I went to the TV studio when I was younger, so kind of been exposed to that stuff. But literally it's just practice. I've called more Ultimate games than most people. I've just for
Yeah.
a long time it was me. I used to produce and commentate at the same time for many years.
Who's more who is the belt? Is it Evan
It's got to be Evan.
top? Are you
It's
ahead
gotta
of
be Evan.
Toner?
Toner's up there too. I would wonder whether me or Toner has done more games. Because like lately I've been doing fewer.
Because you're the big boss, you're the
Yeah,
producer.
I'm the producer now. Yeah.
Okay, I have a couple more Ultiworld questions here, but I don't want to spend all of our time just quizzing you about business. And I mean, it's very interesting to me. What are the demographics like? Do you know? Like, do you have a sense of what? Like, are there very many non-Frisbee players involved? And like, what are people seeking the most from your coverage?
So I think from a combination of just surveys and then also revealed preferences, clearly people want to watch live Ultimate games the most. Like video important, live video more important. And so, when you think about demos, like
Don't forget about the all 14.
all 14 live video, the max.
Yeah.
I mean, there are definitely people who prefer that high end zone angle. You get it a lot of the time on Field Pass. We tend to have that angle, so like that's probably a jam for you.
That's a good point.
So I think it's probably like, I don't know, 75% players and then 25% everybody else, which would be like coaches, parents, friends, grandparents, popping in to watch their kid play the one tournament.
Do you think you have any just pure fan, no relation to a player?
I mean, I gotta think there's some,
There has to be.
but like, do you know those people?
I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't play Frisbee.
There's AUDL fans, right, that don't play. There's got to be some.
Yeah,
that don't
or
have a
maybe their
connection.
kids, yeah, there's got to be some connection. I can't imagine there's like no connection.
Yeah, I
And
think
they're watching, like their kids play or their brother plays, even in something. But that is an interesting question.
And unless you have more to say on that, I have a follow up.
Well, what I would say is that there's a lot, that I keep calling it the AUDL. I got to change my
UFA,
tune. The
yeah.
UFA.
Right.
The UFA has a obvious economic incentive to figure out how to get people who don't play Ultimate to watch and care. And that's a tall task. It's a tall task. It really is. It's been 10 years and like there are some places where it's going decently well, but those tend to be places where people play Ultimate and have friends who play Ultimate. And you like look at the success of the Denver team and the Salt Lake team, and like there's a combination of it like being a good experience as a fan, but it's also like places where there's a lot of Ultimate community. And where there's less Ultimate community, even if the team is really good, it's not the same. Like, look at the Empire. I mean, not to knock them. They're an incredible team. And they have some fans who come out, but like they do not have the most fans in the league and not close.
Yeah, that is an interesting one. Is it because New York is it too big? Because there are plenty of people who play Frisbee.
Too big, and also there's a lot of people who are just not into the UFA, not into the semi-pro thing. I think they play in New Rochelle, which is like, you can't get there on the subway. You got to take a Metro North. So it's not easy to get to if you don't live in Westchester County. So people from the city don't necessarily come up that much.
Right.
And that's not for lack of effort from them. Like they have food, beer, like a decent infrastructure for the games. But it's just like look at the Radicals, right? The Radicals they're not even good anymore, and they still have tons of fans because it's a big Frisbee scene.
Yeah.
They have so many people who play Frisbee.
Great summer league there
in Madison. They have an amazing summer league. So I think the question I have is there a future for success, commercial success for Ultimate that is driven by non-players? I am very skeptical. I think the path forward for success for Ultimate needs to look like we get way more people to start playing. Kids, right? Then kids and their parents go to the game or they watch the stream. And like that's how you end up with a base. And like look at disc golf, right? Disc golf is doing great because people are playing and then they become interested in following the professional side of the game, and they have 50,000 subscribers to their pay-per-view live disc golf, which, if we got to that point, we would be a very large company at that point.
I agree. And I think that would be a really interesting stat to get from like a professional lacrosse team, like another, not a major sport, but one that like has a professional league and plays games. Like how many of, because I'm sure that most of the people going, like I went to a lacrosse game once when I was younger, maybe for like a birthday party or something. But I also think most of us were on a lacrosse team. So I don't think like a lot of the people going to these games are just like not related to the sport. I don't think, like, I think once you're like at a football or a basketball thing, like then it's just a whole event where everyone's going. Now you're basically just going to a concert, like any kind of big, large people event, and it has that kind of draw to it. Whereas like for these smaller sports, I really don't think people are going to go unless they have some sort of connection to it.
I feel like it's smaller team sports as well. I want to backtrack to wrap the put a bow on the non-Frisbee audience piece. So would you say that's not a goal of yours then, to try to reach that demographic at all? Or maybe it is a little bit.
I would say that's certainly not a high priority. I do think, we're going to start creating more content that is designed for total beginners, like learning how to throw, stuff like that. There's like kind of a lack of good quality online content about stuff like that.
That's what I tell Atkins all the
day.
Yeah,
I mean,
Brody.
Bro, in some ways,
we got
that's how
Rowan a
Brody
little
got
bit.
started.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I watched Bro Tips when I was 11, 12, like.
And a lot of people like got introduced to the sport and started playing that way. Or if they weren't introduced, like they were like, oh, I played this game with my friends and I want to learn about it. I'm going to go and look online. And then you find Brody and you watch his YouTube. And I mean, I think to some extent, a lot of people use that. And now Rowan has some videos out about like throwing. And, you know, neither, not to knock them, they're both honestly good teachers and great throwers, but it's not like
necessarily
highly
well-produced.
produced like content. It's just like we're in a field and we're going to talk about throwing, which, you know, that's fundamentally what it needs to be. So
whatever happened to Rise Up? Do you know?
I just don't think the business was there.
Say that again.
I just don't think the business is there for that.
I never even heard of that. I don't even know what that is.
That's amazing to me.
I think it was like Ben Wiggins' brainchild with Mario
Yes.
O'Brien. I think Mario is probably the main contact these days, but it's a Frisbee, ultimate Frisbee tutorials.
I think it probably holds up. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but
I've also never heard of either of those people.
Oh my gosh. Makes me feel old.
Mario O'Brien, he was mixed player of the year. As I don't know if Charlie P voted for him a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yes, I did.
No comment on that, but I think that says everything you need to know.
Yeah, wow, Ben Wiggins. You don't know Ben Wiggins. That's crazy to me. Legendary like player from the
I think he won the Cali in 03.
Yeah.
I was 4 or 5.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it.
like I didn't know what Frisbee was. Like
Quinn, you need to do your history, youngin.
I'm sure they were great. Like I'm sure they were great.
I'm sure they were just all right, and the competition was shit. We're all thinking it.
It was a bunch of plumbers and firemen out there playing.
Plumbers and electricians.
All right, let me ask one final broad Ultiworld question, and then we can change topics here a little bit. As the sport grows, how do you see Ultiworld's involvement in that, or where do you see Ultiworld growing in the next decade? And do you have like a specific goal in mind for the business?
So I think the next phase of growth, it's really different for Ultiworld in some ways than it is for the sport overall, although I think hopefully they can go hand in hand. We have to kind of we now have a business model that is actually functional and can scale into the future. So we have to figure out how to grow the size of the base and figure out like what are things that people want to see from their media coverage of the sport. So I think some areas of growth that we're looking at is continuing to expand and innovate on the live video front, more coverage live of more tournaments, but also continuing to work to make the top end live product even better. So investing a lot in new equipment. We're basically on the precipice of becoming like a professional streaming organization, where, you know, we're going from kind of like a prosumer world into thinking about what is the next leg of investment in terms of higher end cameras, higher end switchers, having a bigger group of people involved in production so that the quality is better and there's less screw ups, and it starts to look more and more like actual television sports. So that's a big piece, is like, how do we make the best events the most fun and engaging to follow with the top level broadcast, but also covering enough of the games that you feel like you can really immerse yourself in the tournament. Because I think that's an important part. You know, there's still so many games that are not streamed. And can we get to a world where they're all streamed?
That would be great.
I don't think we're quite there yet, but the technology is getting closer for that to become a reality. And it really needs to be supported by enough subscriber interest to justify the cost of managing all of those logistics. So that's a big thing, is like, when we have a Worlds or a Club Nationals, or, you know, the big tentpole tournaments that people are really interested in following, how do we make the experience of following those tournaments better? Because adding
Dude,
field pass and
yeah,
like expanding the number
seriously,
of games has been a
if
big
you guys could
step
also get
forward.
like a box score, because USAU, they're never gonna do it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot. It's hard. It's just manpower. It's like,
Right.
do you have enough people to take all the stats? That's the hard part. It just becomes very expensive when you have so many games
For
happening
sure.
at once. But that's a big thing. And then I think expanding on our reporting on, kind of like what's going on in the business side of the sport, and getting back to some of the stuff, if you're a longtime Ultiworld reader, like I think we do a great job of covering the on the field stuff, and especially at big tournaments, we have huge staffs, and like we have reporters who've been working now 5, 6, 7 years who are really, really good. I'm sure you disagree with their takes sometimes, but you should see the takes we get from players when we ask elite players, hey, give us your top 25 ballot. It is a
Dude.
clown show sometimes. And it's like, people give us grief. I'm like, players know nothing about what's going on outside of their region.
And that's also like the point of like an ESPN, like all these
Right.
places are just like make takes that people
Right.
will respond to.
Do
But-
you like giving takes, by the way? Like, is it ever uncomfortable, or do you
Ask
just don't give a
Yuli.
shit?
Ask Yuli.
I don't know how I'm suddenly in a beef with like Brody and Yuli.
Beef.
But
I know
I have-
Brody was coming at you. They were like two like bullies, just
Brody's like Brody's like, Charlie hates me now. I'm like, dude, no, I don't. Like, Brody's hilarious. Yeah, I don't know if this is disc golf drama, so we don't have to necessarily get into it here. But
We want to dabble over there.
I
in a
gotta
love
give
second.
this golf.
gotta
drama.
give the take. I mean, I don't know. It's supposed to be fun. This is all supposed to be fun. So when I get on the podcast, I want it to be a fun thing. I don't want to just like, well, I think UNC is going to win in both divisions again. At the end of the day, I say what I think, and a lot of times that is the chalk pick, or not just like the hot take out of nowhere. Like, I'm not Stephen A. Smith. My job is not to come up with a different take every day of the week. But I do think it's fun to think about like what's
Think
interesting.
about Bravo going 0-3 in pool play.
Yeah, see, you know what? I had the take. It was way off. It was way wrong. But I think you gotta face the facts sometimes. Like, you get it wrong
Yeah,
sometimes.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it.
part of
And
the-
I think that's what makes it. I mean, I grew up Philly sports, listening to Philly talk radio, and
Yes.
I mean, like their whole job is to say provocative shit that like is like semi annoying and like maybe has some basis. Like you could sort of see how they're making an argument, like enough that they can kind of defend it. But the whole point is they make some crazy takes that people call up and are like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Mike?"
Right.
From New Jersey, and they're like, "No, they really should fire everyone."
Yeah, but I'm not like going out of my way to do stuff
Just
like
stir
that.
the
The
pot.
dark star over Bravo take was always very tenuous. But it's supposed to be fun, right?
Honestly,
And
they
like,
could have taken half off.
here I am. I finally get to have talk to Kins about getting into it with Johnny Bansfield. I haven't had a chance to do this yet, and so like that's fun. Like, sure, some people are going to be like, "Oh, this isn't spirit of the game" and stuff, but like ultimately, I think as a producer, I was the producer for all of that. I was like, get me every angle of this. This is amazing television, and it was amazing television.
And
like, that's what
you were-
people talked about for days.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you were talking about like the UFA and what they have to do. And like that's what I also go back and forth on this because I don't really like it. Like we talk about sometimes like, doing this pod, we talk about like playing the game of social media and like what seems to be, pretty obvious on how you get people to view your stuff and all that.
I don't know how to
like-
do it, but
I think we know how to do it. I think it's harder for me to actually go and like put myself out there to do it. Cause like if you're talking about like the UFA and stuff, like people, they want to see like everyone just wants like beef nowadays, or they want like drama. Like no one wants to see like, oh, hey, like Ben Yad, I love you, dude. I think you're like such a good player. Like they want Joel Embiid and Jokic to hate each other. Like that's what they want. They want them to be like pitted against each other. And that's, I think, I think the UFA is more in a position than like USA Ultimate to do that kind of stuff. But then I guess it begs the question, like a lot of people see Ultimate as like I don't know. They see it as like I don't know what the correct term would be, but like not going down this path of like just this clickbaity stuff or like what everyone else seems to be doing. Like, Ultimate does it different. But also, if you're going to grow and get bigger in like this society, like you're doing stuff like that. You're making these like shorts of like players like getting into it and that.
Let me counterpoint that. As a Philly person like Jason Kelsey, the Kelsey Bros, they have the New Heights pod, and they're the most popular podcast. And I would say that they're more celebratory than divisive or hot takey. I'm not saying that any of you cannot have a hot take, but I don't know that you need to go that direction to garner a large audience or get a large following and be entertaining.
I agree. I think it's harder though. I agree that you don't, and I wouldn't want to have it be that way. But I do think it's more like it's easier to just be like to slip into those whatever.
It's interesting because NBA, like so much of NBA fan culture is like what's going on Twitter and like who said this and said that. And like, yet ratings have suffered in recent seasons. So it's really interesting to think about how like there's all of this energy around like the contracts and the stuff going on off the court, but it's almost detracting from people wanting to just watch the games. And that's a problem for the leagues long term. I think that's really interesting because
it is interesting.
Some leagues have less of that stuff. It's not like the NFL doesn't have drama, obviously, but they have been so resilient in getting people to watch the games. Millions and millions of people watch the games every week. And why are they so successful relative to, I love watching NBA, but there's a beauty of the television presentation of an NFL football game that I think.
Yeah, I mean, I do feel like there are higher stakes per game though, and like there are other reasons that contribute to people wanting to watch. It's like a dedicate. You have it. Sunday is for church and football, basically, and
right,
and so they have that going for them as well. But I am one of those probably people that you're describing. Like I follow all sports, but I rarely watch sports live.
Mm-hmm.
I only know I'm the guy that watches the Mancast highlight on social media.
Right.
Yeah, I would say there's less true fans of these sports that are like watching football to watch the nuances of the play calls and that stuff. And more, I think there's a lot of those people, but I think the majority of people are doing it to sit down, relax, put the football game on. It's something to just hang out and do, but they're not like, this isn't like their time to like totally freak out and like see how the safeties are, disguising their coverage and like that kind of stuff. Like they're just relaxing, watching the football, drinking a beer, and like maybe hanging out with people.
Yeah.
But I think Ultimate, if it is going to become commercially successful, and what that would mean would obviously be on a vastly smaller scale than any of the sports we're talking about right now, is going to get there because the gameplay is interesting and not because there's like fabricated drama going on.
For sure.
Like there is a little bit of drama that like spices up Ultimate sometimes, but mostly there isn't that much drama. And I think a great Ultimate game that has, big plays and an exciting finish and is tight throughout, that's great sports. And like I say that it holds up against these other sports in terms of being a very great television product. Like if you had an NFL production team doing a high level Ultimate game, like a great game, it's going to be an awesome broadcast. And I think people would find it visually interesting and fun. And, then we can talk about if we want to have NFL athletes playing Ultimate.
I agree though. And I agree that I think a lot of that will become from the fact that people also played Ultimate a little bit because of like the quality of the sport. Like I think it'll be the quality of the sport that's happening. And then the fact that their kids played it or they played it and they understand. And that's, I agree. And part of what you were saying about like making the tournaments more, engaging and whatnot. I think a big part of that as a sports viewer is just the storylines. Like I the Super Bowl, you always have so many, especially like, it's like, what are the storylines going into the Super Bowl? Cause you also wait like 2 weeks, but it's like, are the coaches brothers? Did one coach at the other organization, so now it's like a redemption? Like, or you have the Kelsey brothers. It's like, I think the more of those you can create for individual games and tournaments, like the more compelled people are to watch those tournaments. So it's like the extreme would almost be like making a mini documentary of like how this player on, just Bravo played on Revolver, and now they're slated against each other for, the pool play to like win the pool. And like those types of little things, I think, get a lot of interest, because then it's like people have this background knowledge going into the game, and he's just like a reason to watch. Now you just have like any reason to watch other than it's just like a Bravo Revolver game. Now you have like these, like the coaches are brothers, or the coach used to play for them and like knows all the players. I think like that's a big thing. And then betting. Once Ultimate gets betting, sports betting.
We do have betting.
No, we don't.
We did last year.
We did.
We did.
It was great while it lasted.
Yeah, until like
DraftKings got killed too many times, and they were like, "Forget it, we're out."
I know. I'm sure like an actual Ultimate fan, like who knew the rosters going into the week, was just making a killing off that.
I mean, we did a betting column where we made picks every week. I think like I was probably like 30-5 on picks or something. Like that. Like, I mean, way above 50%.
I should have just quit coaching.
Yeah.
So I could have been eligible to bet. Damn, why didn't I think of that?
Insider trading.
Yeah, I looked at some of those lines and it was just like, this makes no logical sense. Like, one of these is obviously going to cash. Like the over under at like 40, and it's a super windy game in Chicago. It's like, I wonder what's going to cash. Like,
or like Atlanta's going to Carolina and like half their roster isn't playing, and it's like Atlanta -2. You're like, well, there's no fucking way.
There's a USAU tournament that week.
Yeah, like all their good players aren't playing. But sports betting has just blown up. So once they can actually get that back in, then that's the only way actually that you get non-Ultimate related people to follow the sport, is like they will follow maybe if there's some betting opportunities.
I did just watch a news segment last night about how betting is helping sports in general thrive. I do want to sort of cut us off because I know we don't have unlimited time with you, Charlie. And I want to make sure we hit some of these items, and I do want to talk a little bit. I know Kins wants to talk about disc golf, and you were sort of touching on focusing on streaming a little bit more as a company, as Ultiworld. Does that mean streaming other sports? And I don't even know. Have you guys streamed a disc golf event?
No, my thinking was to, if we were going to figure out a good business model in disc golf, that it was going to involve streaming, but this was before COVID, at a time when it was still kind of Wild West in terms of streaming. And now it's so obviously consolidated under the Disc Golf Network, which is owned by the tour. There's no world in which there would be an opportunity really to get involved in streaming there that would make sense. I'm happy to be a
follow
commentator.
Kins around. He would love that. He's got what would you call it? An unofficial round scheduled with Eagle and McMahon. So,
oh, nice.
Unofficial, yeah. But I am pretty hype about it.
That's going to be sweet.
If he ever gets back. Yeah, especially with his new signing and stuff like that.
I know.
But wait, I did have one last question, and we were talking about the sport growing and needing, more people to play. And then as Ultiworld grows, do you have any thoughts in general on how Ultimate should be expanding and reaching new players? And do you have any plans for like Ultiworld to, I guess, aid in that adventure?
Well, it's a great question. I think our world is always going to be like making it more fun to be involved. It's like fun to follow the top level of the sport. Fun if your college team is on video and you get to learn about, more offensive and defensive structures and breakdowns. Cause like there's not that many resources still for newer coaches or players to kind of learn about, how is a host stack supposed to work? Like these things are passed down from, players from 10 years ago who taught it, and now it's like being learned again. And there are obviously coaching innovators who know the game at a really high level who are working on sort of advancing the strategy of the game. But I think we're going to facilitate growth by making it more fun to be playing and following the game if you become interested in the higher level. So I do have ideas on like actual products that we could make. Like I think there should be, and we maybe someday we'll have an opportunity to make this a part of like having an Ultiworld subscription, like drill and season outlines for age 5 through 18. Like I'm a dad coaching 8-year-olds in an ultimate Frisbee. We're playing once a week to then have little games like Little League, like whatever. And you want to know how to like teach them to play the game. Maybe you never played. Maybe you played really casually, but you need instructions. Like there should be an app for that. Because right now, all of the coaching that's being done is being done by like high level, either former players or current players.
Yeah.
And like people are aspiring to, coach somebody to a national championship. But like fundamentally, we need people to coach like total beginners and create playing opportunities for ages below high school. And that is not happening in a wide scale way at all. And like even places that have good ultimate don't necessarily have great youth scenes. And so I think there's just a massive untapped opportunity to like just actually make it possible for people to play the game as like a 9-year-old who played at summer camp and now wants to play it for an 8-week season outside of a school context.
Yeah.
They have that everywhere. Like I live in northern Manhattan. Little League is huge here. This is the biggest Dominican neighborhood outside of the Dominican Republic. They love baseball. My friend in the neighborhood, his kid is 9, and he's been coaching and involved in the Little League now for like 3 or 4 years. And like, it's a big deal. And like, this is a whole scene, and it's completely unaffiliated with schools. We have nothing like that in Ultimate in almost every city in the country. And so how do we create that opportunity for people to start to get involved and ultimately for it to be a sustainable thing for like someone to make enough money at it or like be able to coach their kids' team?
Yeah.
We don't have that right now. And I think that that's been a big missed opportunity. Lacrosse has done an amazing job of that over the last 25, 30 years. And you look at the growth paths of those two sports, and it's like lacrosse has just gone to the sky because they've developed this youth side of the game in way bigger fashion than ultimate.
Yeah, actually, I feel like Alex has the energy to do this, but maybe you could help focus his energy and utilize him. Honestly,
Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
What, to like create the app or to coach?
I know you're very passionate about exactly what Charlie was describing and expanding youth resources. But this is me half giving Kins shit too, because he has so many great ideas and so many passions, and this podcast honestly is one of them, in my opinion, that has been super fun for us to do. It's a matter of harnessing your energy.
Y'all gave
Kins.
me some props, so I want to give you guys some props. I mean, this is not like a common thing that we have like high level players and coaches like creating content around Ultimate Frisbee. I can name them on my hand. Like Rowan and Johnny have their thing. That like the people who do stuff at Ultiworld, and like what else even is there? Like Instagram, social media, like our biggest players are not really out there doing Frisbee stuff besides Rowan.
Jack dabbled, I suppose, recently.
He did some YouTube stuff, right? But I just checked his channel. He hasn't done anything in 9 months.
Yeah. Interesting.
So I think there's not necessarily the same like financial incentives that exist in other sports, and including disc golf. But I think it's really important that we get an ecosystem of like players being more accessible to younger generations. Like if you think about like the players or the names that you looked up to when you were coming up as high school players, and like how you found out about them. And
Totally.
like we need to create those opportunities. And I think Ultiworld can help on that front for sure. But players themselves being accessible is also a step forward on that. So just shout out to you guys for making this podcast.
Thanks for saying that, Charlie.
And I agreed with you what you were saying earlier, because when I was dabbling in the youth space a little bit last year, it makes sense. You're like, oh, start up all these teams, but then you run into not having a large enough supply of coaches to coach like middle schools. So I actually do think like a blueprint of just something that would empower your
Gym teacher.
your gym teacher, your parent who just is like, once their kid like saw their kid had a really good time at some AYU camp, and now they want to play at their school, but they don't really know how to teach them. And like we were saying with Charlie, not everyone has that ability to just go into something having known nothing about it and just jump in. So like giving them the outline to just be like, oh, you just teach them how to throw and how to mark and how to cut, and like they'll figure it out after that.
Exactly. If you're
Right,
teaching
so-
7-year-olds how to play, like we're not trying to make the next Jack Williams yet. Like they just need to learn how to run around.
And that's how you make the next Jack Williams, because I
100%.
credit a lot of how, my development to just my dad coached a lot of camps when I was growing up. And so he was given, every summer I heard the spiel on how to mark, make an undercut, like do those basic things like 10 times throughout the summer. So like they're drilled into my head on just how to do this like most basic shit. But I still use them when I, play Ultimate at the highest level.
You need to have an app, and you go there and it says week 1, lesson 1, basic backhand throws. And then we're going to do some like cutting tree basic patterning while the coach throws to the players and they try to catch it. Whatever. Like you could ask all kinds of different people to create these sort of lesson plans, but it needs to be accessible to anybody who knows nothing to just be able to go, okay, like today we're going to do this and this, and they're just going to follow the recipe basically of how to teach this age range. And then, eventually they start to realize what works for them, what doesn't. We have amazing coaches of youth players that have this knowledge in their mind. You think about what's going on in Utah, the OGs like Michael Baccarini and Tina Booth. These people are out there with this knowledge, and it's like not able to be passed on. So right now it's just unsustainable to ask elite players to also be doing all of the coaching of the youth levels. And shout out to all the players who take the time to do it. It's great, but the only way we scale is if we ask parents of kids to start coaching.
Yeah, seriously. And it's like there when they look up online, how do I coach my middle school team? Like this pops up first.
And we need the local organizations to provide enough infrastructure to make it possible.
Right.
We are running this, AYU is running this league.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have these teams. We're looking for coaches to do this thing. And like somebody has to schedule the games and have the observers if you need that or whatever. But then you have to, the refs.
Sue me.
But we need to ask the, people who want to have their kid play on the team need to say, okay, I'm going to step up and I'm going to be the little league coach.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the conflicts that our players have, because I think I wish all of our players wanted to coach and were coaching, but those that do tend to miss half of practice, like on Tuesdays for what is it? Is it GRU? Is that what it's called here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's just a deterrent for a lot of club players that want to do it.
Right, because even when I wanted to get into coaching, I was like, oh, I'll just start coaching more. Like, I love Frisbee. It'll be fun. But then I realized I love Frisbee, but I want to focus on being a player, not a coach. And so then you're like splitting yourself up too much, because I need to work. I need to be an ultimate player. And then I also want to coach. And then you're just spreading yourself too thin, because like to focus on being the best ultimate player I can be and also trying to like coach, I just found myself getting way too stressed out, even though it's super rewarding coaching little middle schoolers, but I have to wait until I'm no longer having a playing career to enter that space more.
I think that that's going to be the rational outcome for most elite players. Like if you're taking it seriously, it's like having another job.
Yeah, exactly.
Story of my life.
Too many jobs.
Kinsey, you want to talk a little bit about disc golf, or should we move on to?
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted you to ask you was comparing. So now, well, first, let's get some background on like what Ultiworld does in the disc golf space. Like, when did that start? When did you guys start covering disc golf? And because I know you commentate live for disc golf now, so like, when did it start, and how much do you guys do in disc golf?
So I remember, I think it was 2015. I tuned into the United States Disc Golf Championships, which are in October, a week or two before Club Nationals in Charlotte every year. And I had played disc golf. I was aware of disc golf. I had played, maybe with a real disc once, but mostly just like with an Ultra Star. I played with my brother. We used to play in the, just by our house in the Albuquerque suburbs, to the stop sign kind of thing. And so I tune into this, and there were like 6,000 people watching live. And I was like, oh my God, like that's kind of a lot. That's impressive. That's a big number. Like for Ultimate, that would be a really big game. A really big game, like a national final level game. Sorry?
What is the biggest for Ultimate, top of your head number?
That's around what I've seen. The problem is most of the biggest games are broadcast on like ESPN and stuff.
Right.
So we don't know. I don't know what the numbers are or what they would be if those games were, available more readily on YouTube or something like that. But that would be a pretty good number. Like our biggest games right now, live concurrent number of viewers, north of 3,000 is a really good game. North of 4,000 is like a huge game.
And that would be like a quarter or like a quarterfinal or something. Like a semifinal.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, there's just, I think the biggest stream we ever did was double wide Florida United back in whatever that was in the last Sarasota year, because like everyone hated both teams.
That's hilarious.
And like everyone, and they both made quarters, like surprise. And it was like everyone hate watched it. And of course the game was so chippy and awful. But that was the biggest stream. Really, and that's when I was like, okay, so people really do just love the drama.
Well, so this is what I'm saying, right? Like Mikey was like, and I'm like, and the most watched game was years ago, double wide Florida United just calling. Yeah, that's funny.
But let's look at disc golf now. So just to jump ahead to give just like where we are now.
Yeah.
Top disc golf streams get 30,000 viewers. Damn. And maybe 40,000 for like a really, really, it's a little less easy to compare now because the big rounds are not free anymore. You got to pay, but it's now 10x Ultimate. It'd be my basic guess. So anyway, back in 2015, I was like, wow, that's a lot. I feel like this is an obvious business for us to try to get into, like a sport to start covering and try to replicate what we've done at Ultiworld in disc golf. So the next year, there were some discussions with a company that existed at the time that had a website, kind of like a newsy website. And that guy was trying to get out and we were trying to get in. We talked about a buyout, didn't end up happening. So we just started our own thing. That website then promptly basically shut down. And there's been a lot of efforts over the years to create a website about disc golf, and they've all failed. And it's really interesting. Like, why is that?
Yeah, there's such a big following.
It's ultimately it comes down to the money in these niche sports is in broadcasting, and it's not as much in content.
Yeah, I suppose. I'm thinking about pickleball, actually, another fringe sport that is huge, but as far as I know, there's no media outlet for it. There's just a lot of streamed.
I think there's the Dink, maybe. I don't know.
World.
Yeah, I mean, if we, it's funny coming out of the pandemic. Matt Stevens, one of the owners of the New York Empire and a longtime player, reached out and was like, "Hey, he's a big pickleball guy. He's like, hey, I got this guy who's trying to like start a professional pickleball thing, and he needs broadcasting, and they've got a tournament coming up in Arizona. Could you do it?" And this is like maybe early 2021 when we are just like doing nothing. They didn't want to pay.
Oh,
they didn't want to pay. No, we were gonna try. We were gonna try it. So who knows what would have happened if we stuck our toe into
Picky World.
streaming pickleball. Streaming pickleball is really easy. It's like you
need
need the
one
high
camera.
camera, the net camera, and like a tight camera for face shots and stuff, and then you're good. That's all you need.
Yeah.
But anyway, so disc golf, we started the website. Steve Hill, who now is the marketing director at UDisc, which is like the app everybody uses to track their scorecards. He came on. He had been doing like disc golf writing for a long time. He came on as our first editor, and honestly did an amazing job. Like he broke some big stories. Just his daughter was still not in school full time. She was 2-3 years old, something like that. So he was stay-at-home dad and had a lot of time to like help run the website. So we got that started. We started the Upshot podcast in 2016, I think, that I co-hosted with him, and I still host. And I would say that that's our primary product right now is the podcast. It's been a pretty big influential podcast in disc golf for especially the last like 5 years. And I do it 2 days a week. There's a lot
Versus
going on.
one. Wow.
Yeah, versus one. For a while, we were doing it 3 days a week, which was just like too much to like keep up the pace.
Does it get more viewership than the Deep Look Pod?
By a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, by like probably like 6 to 12 times, depending on the week.
God. So you're commentating for the live broadcast is just you as an individual separate from Ultiworld?
In a way, but it's all billed through Ultiworld. So like that's kind of part of my work that I do at Ultiworld is I do some of the broadcasting for the AUDL or the UFA now, and then the Disc Golf Network. So that yeah, I was like super excited to get the opportunity to do that, and it was coming at a time when there was no existing base of commentators. So that's a lot of fun. It keeps me really engaged in the disc golf world, and I do news writing. And this year I'm going to try to revive my my business like column that I write, and insider reporting on business of disc golf, which like there's a little bit more interest in business side stuff in a way, from like a way that you can actually monetize. Like, I just don't think people are going to pay to read recaps of disc golf tournaments. We stopped writing them because nobody cares, because you can watch it all.
Right. It's so well covered. And I just want to say to the people that are like, Ultimate, Ultimate needs to like change some of its rules, or like the minute of people talking, like people don't want to watch that. If disc golf streams are getting 40K viewers, I'm sorry, it doesn't fucking matter. Like, it's not the product of like what's happening. It's simply the base of people that are willing to watch it, because you can watching disc golf is not like some like action packed. Like, it's like people walking around in the woods and they throw a shot once in a while.
I suppose that's a good point.
Maybe that's a good shot. Well, I just think there's so much of like people don't want to watch people talk about a call for a minute. No, like they will if they're interested in whatever is going on. Like, if there's that many people watching disc golf, I don't think the product of Ultimate, like I would say it's still way more action packed and entertaining than just like a disc golf round. Like, there's the storylines of disc golf, but it's not like you log on to that. It's like golf. It's so slow paced. Like and it's like the lead card is like, there's like maybe two, especially at the end of the round, there's like maybe 8 players that are at most you're really interested in their shot. The rest of them are just like, we're going to go to this guy on the 16th hole who's like 20 shots back of the lead, but like no one else is shooting. So here's what you get for this 5 minutes. Like, it's not.
But so what does keep people engaged then?
Right.
Is it just because they're interested in the sport?
It's that there's stories, there's personalities,
So when
The
you're
individual
commentating one of those events,
personalities of the individual sport of disc golf, people care. They have rooting interest. They know this player from social media. They want to see if they can redeem, and the stats build into the broadcast, and you get these like really, I mean, for all of its slow pace, which is 100% true, what Ken said is totally true, there are these huge payoff moments when someone hits a huge shot that are
Totally.
just like, holy crap, I can't believe that they made
Totally.
it. Like just incredible moments
Yeah.
that, you get those in
So-
Ultimate too, but it's
when you're commentating and when the stream is focused on the guy that's 20 back, are you trying actively to weave the storyline of the interesting people, or are you staying focused on the guy that we don't care about?
it's funny because I have a producing background, I'm often on the side, like texting the producer at DGN, Mahmood. I'll be like, hey, like, or in a commercial break, I'll be like, hey, I think we should just like stop showing anybody except these two players. Like, let's just like watch them walk down
Just
the fairway
watch 'em,
because
yeah.
it's more exciting to have the buildup of that. I think they've done a great job, DGN. Like a lot of times if you're seeing like a random shot like that now, it's because it's a really good shot. It's like,
Yeah.
here's random guy on the 16th, but he hits a 100-foot putt, or,
Yeah.
he skips it and almost makes an ace and it hits the
Totally.
basket. So like you're actually seeing like essentially a highlight that
Mhm.
lets you have time to not watch people stand around before you go see them throw the important shot. But
Yeah.
if you're fake with the audience and you try to build it up too much or like create interest where there is none, that people don't like that.
Yeah.
It's annoying. And like people, a huge valid criticism of disc golf commentary is that everybody talks too damn much. People need to stop saying as much and just let the pace of the sport be what it is. So a
Yeah.
lot of times when you're commentating disc golf, you say, here's the player, they're throwing their second shot on the par 4 third, and then you just shut up and you watch for 10 seconds because
Slight wind out of the northwest.
we all watch. If you've seen any golf broadcasts, you know.
Yeah.
But it's annoying to have somebody talking at you for 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think tennis is a really good example of that too. Like they don't do much. They talk about the player a lot, but they don't. It's mostly silent.
They
which
literally don't
I
talk
love.
during active play.
Yeah, it's like I think it's great, and I think like I'm a tennis fan, so I've been watching. Going back to like the personalities thing, this series Breakpoint on Netflix. Like I think the series it's pretty bad. Like it's pretty poorly produced, and the cuts and the shots are mostly pretty shit, to be honest. Like they'll take a shot from a completely different point or even a completely different match and like clip it in and act like it was from that match, and then they'll like jump to something else, and it's like that like completely jarring for someone that like actually watching it. You have no idea, but just watching it for the personalities of these players, because they're just such like psychos. Like they're honestly just psychos.
But we're
And
psychos. Maybe that's what we need, Quinn, is a
But that's what I'm
docu-series.
saying. That's what I'm
Charlie,
saying. Like
make it happen, dude.
like I'm probably like that to people that don't play tennis. Like they like.
Oh, for sure. You
Like,
are a psycho.
I'm
to some-
definitely a psycho to people that don't play frisbee. Like
100%. We all
So-
are.
yeah.
I actually think that is a good idea of what. And I remember we got an email when it was still the ADL about something like that happening. And I don't think you had to like apply and they were going to follow you around. But I don't think it actually ever happened. I think it just maybe died or nothing.
BE is doing like the mic'd up things, and I think that's like it's a good.
Mic'd up is cool, but
it's
a
not
docu-series of like
It's-
you follow a couple teams and a couple players.
No,
if you
totally.
could get something like that on a, but the thing is, it has to be because I watched that. You reminded me of I watched one on the Tour de France and had no previous interest in biking, and I watched that whole. I don't even watch shit on like Netflix and stuff, and I watched that whole thing in like 2 days just because it was like so compelling, and I had no idea. And you just learn about the teams and the backgrounds and like who these people are, because it's also like when they introduce a new team, they introduce a new player, then they give you the cuts of like who this player is, how they grew up, and you're all of a sudden you're like kind of invested, and you're like, is this like nobody gonna win? Are like the rich team, are they gonna just like crush everyone like they're supposed to?
This is a really good point too, because so Charlie, Devin is my wife, and she's not a sports fan. And I know hopefully she doesn't get this far on the podcast, so she doesn't hear this, but she doesn't want to watch sports. And like, I'm a huge Avs fan, I'm a huge tennis fan, I'm a huge football fan. Like, I want to watch sports every chance I get, right? And she like wants to watch tennis because we're watching this Breakpoint series, and she like sometimes wants to watch football because of like Hard Knocks and all this stuff. But like, she like I have like we won't watch sports unless it's like she's invested in some type of
Right.
You have to have an emotional investment in it.
Yeah, it gives her an emotional investment. So now she's like a huge Taylor Fritz and Tommy Paul fan from tennis, and just because they were on that show.
Right.
And then we're like, the Australian Open's going on, so we're like watching the Aussie Open, and she's like,
Right.
like we're gonna watch Djokovic and Taylor Fritz play later. It's like sick.
Yeah, I need Alcaraz to take Zverev out tomorrow to win my my bet on Alcaraz to win his quarter. So
I wouldn't worry about that.
I think that's easy, right?
He's a choke artist in the quarters. It's his career.
But you think about it, right? Like, we're
So that's what we
invested
need.
in sports because we have a team that we
Mhm.
care about, right? Like the 49ers, I'll watch the 49ers game. I care because it's the 49ers. And like, I know the players
Mhm.
because it's the 49ers, but like, I grew up But for people who are not natural sports fans in that way,
exactly.
they have to have like emotional connection to the players involved. I mean,
Exactly.
and this all spawned from the F1 series that blew up Formula One in the US. And like, maybe that's a fad a little bit. And like the Vegas thing was kind of suspect, but like now every sport wants to have this docuseries about it because it gives you that opportunity to emotionally invest and like buy into storylines that you don't get when you just watch the broadcast out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yes, would it be awesome to do this in Ultimate? 100%. It's just really hard. It's
So
really
hard.
hard, and it requires a huge budget and a lot of time. And so like
We
done
need the
little-
Empire to make it happen.
We've done little mini docs. I mean, maybe
Yeah,
you
they
guys saw the
did.
ones we did about the Colorado teams,
Yeah,
the
definitely.
college programs.
Of course.
Right.
And
I was
like,
at the practice while the crew was there.
and like even that was like a 15 20 minute little thing takes months
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah,
And a lot of
we
money.
exchanged a lot of emails with Lindsay. I remember.
And I mean, Lindsay did a great job, and like it's a really nice thing, and it's great to have those little snapshots. But to make a series that even like let's all 4 or 6 part 45 to 60 minute episodes, like it's just an immense amount of work. And like that's something we'd love to do someday when the budgets are there, because you need to have probably over $200,000 to do something like that the right way.
Mhm.
And it would be awesome.
Well, let's get the Empire to stop buying all those oxygen tanks and invest that money into
And
some
those sleep masks.
and
all that
sleep.
bullshit.
Yeah. What are we talking about? Let's put that into a documentary. Maybe
We
you
gotta-
won't win a game. Like maybe you'll lose one of your altitude road trip games, but for the
They have
payoff,
AK out there, and
Yeah.
Richard and Chuck. Chuck's not too far.
and
Chuck Clear's not too far.
and the Marquez. So come on, make it happen. Like, what do we do?
Is Colorado going to make a big road trip this year? Play a good team?
I don't know if
I don't know what
we
we're allowed to
Say?
talk
I don't
about.
think we're
Are
allowed
we?
to say. But
Well, I
yes.
mean, I don't care. Salt Lake is coming to DC, right? That's like
That's
the
Yeah, I'm
East,
bummed
though,
that
yeah.
DC's not coming here.
I know.
yeah.
Oh, damn. Do I just kins bomb some shit?
We got
This is what we need to figure out if we are this as a pod. Because I could definitely. But then I also
break
think about
break
it like
some
who am I?
news.
I need to
some
break news. I agree. I need to break news, but
Should we
and also
break
like
it?
who am I pissing? Like who?
Yeah.
who's-
What's we don't
Yeah,
even
like,
know what
what's
are you going to be
What's
fined?
what is the downside? Like if people find out earlier,
They're
like,
going to
who-
fine you.
Well, but like who? But I'm saying like who does it hurt? Like what is that like sacrificing?
I don't think it hurts
The
anybody.
UFA.
This is the hype that the UFA
let's do it.
needs.
Kins do it.
I don't think we're going to any big road trips. Well,
We are.
we're
It's not big, but we're going.
it's not big, but I know our
It's
one
your
big
division.
game that we have coming, and then I think we'll probably be on that like Super Series one. Is Atlanta is going to come to Colorado? And
Nice.
we're gonna
That'll be
get in
fun.
Atlanta. And
That'll
that's
be
and that's-
fun.
and
Yeah,
that's a
that'd be
good
sick.
game.
And we're doing Minnesota Madison road trip as well, instead
Mhm.
of a California road trip in
Okay.
replace.
Okay.
And the reason that'll be fun is because I had the Minnesota guys so damn pissed off last at that ADL championship when I was broadcasting, dude. I had them so mad just because like the wind chill were to me as the Cowboys are to Stephen A. Like I was like, because it all stemmed from the fact that they had come to play us and we just wiped the floor with
Beat
them.
the doors off them. Yeah.
And so they were playing Salt Lake, and my whole thing was like, they suck. They're gonna get crushed. Why do we even care? And then it was hilarious because they lost on the buzzer beater. And I remember, I'll never forget walking out of the field complex, and some Winchell players goes, "Hey Atkins, like you still like betting against us or whatever, like something like that." And I was just like,
yes, you lost.
Welcome
Yeah.
to sports. Welcome to sports media.
I know. That's like,
Yeah,
like,
you can't
must
really
get that
clap
all the
back that
time.
hard when you lose in like
You
the most
lost.
heartbreaking fashion of all time. By
Right,
like playing the buzzer beater wrong and having all of the players outside of the end zone. Oh no.
right. Like if they had won, like I would have been like, you know what? Hats off. Like congrats to you guys. But I didn't really. It was like whatever. You still lost. Although it was a lot closer of a game than I anticipated. So
It was a
shout
very
out.
good game.
But
It
that's
was.
why that'll be interesting because when we go there, I'm sure there will be some. They'll be trying to
That
prove
was
a point.
that was easy game of the year, I think. Because of the stakes and
Oh,
playing at
yeah.
home and
Yeah, they were
everything. I think that
home.
was game of the year.
And it was just the best because like the fans, like I just remember the energy at the stadium as
It was
well
wild.
was the best because it was home. So like they had all their fans there and it was just like a great
Yeah.
atmosphere.
I'm excited to go to Madison for that reason to see like what
That- yeah.
what their fan base is like, because I think this kind of touched on stuff we talked about earlier. But I was surprised at championship weekend in Madison 2 years ago when we went. Like there wasn't that many people there. It didn't seem like I watch an average Madison regular season game and they had more people at their regular season games than they did at championship weekend. So I'm curious to see if like there's actually a bunch of Madison fans that aren't just like watching Frisbee to watch Frisbee.
And I think that's really what it is that like
Yeah.
people are fans of the team. They don't
Yeah.
necessarily just want to watch a random Ultimate game. Like, sure, they'll still get, hundreds of people to come out, but like, there are Radicals fans.
Yeah.
They have the gear. They know the
I'm stoked
players.
for that,
Like
yeah.
they're into it.
We need that documentary to come out ASAP so that this championship weekend people are there. But it's going to be hard. This year's like the UFA is definitely scripting it so that Salt Lake is going to make their own championship weekend. Like, dude, the refs.
Yeah,
They're
y'all
gonna
are already
fuck us.
y'all already
We're done.
lost.
We're
You already
done.
lost.
Oh,
We've
shit,
already
that
fucked,
division
yeah.
crown is gone.
Oh
forever.
my God. We're so screwed. There's
Yeah.
no way.
I do want to be a little time sensitive here, knowing that we're getting close to the top of the hour. I was hoping we'd be able to talk a little bit more about the rebrand with you on
With
Charlie.
UFA,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can share some quick thoughts and we can chat about
Sure.
it here. I mean, I
Yeah.
think like having Ultimate Frisbee be a part of the name of the league is a cool thing. I think that like
sure.
initially some people are gonna think it's really weird and awkward and but the idea that we should try to shed the Frisbee part of it is, I think, the wrong way to go. Like, we should want to associate with the name that everybody calls the thing. And like, there's nothing, I mean, I use Frisbee all the time to talk about what it is that we do and what we use. And like, it's Frisbee.
Mhm.
When I tell people what I do for work, I don't say I run a website about Ultimate. I say Ultimate Frisbee, obviously, because otherwise people don't know what the hell you're talking
Yeah.
about. So I think, I feel like they maybe should have thought a little bit more about how they could like, have a real web URL and like the other things around this that kind of feel like a little rushed or weird, but calling it Ultimate Frisbee Association, I think people are going to get used to it pretty quick. And anything like this sounds wrong when you first hear it, when there's something changes, or when a website that you like changes the way that it looks. It's jarring. But then you get used to it and everybody will be like, it's cool.
And what do you think about making new discs?
Well, that I'm really interested to hear what elite players think. I mean, having thrown the ARIA, and the last two high school national invites have been ARIA tournaments. The high school
I
kids,
had no idea.
they just pick up the disc and they don't know the
That's
damn
true.
difference.
We got the Ari
I mean, they're really so, it's very
They're the
difficult,
same.
I think, to tell the difference in their flight pattern in any meaningful way. Like
Yeah.
they're different in the way where like some days when you go outside and it's a little bit windier, you know, you're like, oh, like I'm like turning my flick over a little too much. I need to make sure I hit a little more IO. And like that, but that's
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
not like you're like, oh, this is just like a wrong Frisbee. This is not right.
No,
The product
yeah.
is wrong.
I mean,
You
every
can't tell the
time we
difference.
go down to anywhere else from altitude,
You
we
have to
do
adjust.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I started to toss one with Lisa P this weekend, and I didn't tell her that it was the new disc, and I don't think she was gonna know. I was
Exactly.
like, "This is the new one," and she was like, "What are you talking about?" Like after
think
a couple throws in.
The plastic feel is a little different to me.
Mhm.
That's what I noticed the most. But
Yeah,
like
same.
rim, depth, like hand feel, flight path,
Rim's a little different.
I couldn't tell you the difference.
I
really.
actually noticed a little bit difference in the rim. Just like holding my flick, it felt like the rim was deeper, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like longer because like when I'm holding my flick, when I was throwing it, it felt like it was taking a second longer to come out of my hand because the rim was deeper, I suppose. But yeah, it's the same. It's just a disc.
I'm
I mean, it was
excited for
literally reverse engineered to basically be an Ultra Star, right? Which
Right.
it has to
Yeah.
be if it's going to be a functional product that people want to use.
I'm also curious though, because we talked about this a little bit, but what it's going to feel like with a stamp on it, because all the ones we have are unstamped. So if they put a heat stamp on it, what it's going to feel like? Is it going to be different? Because the Ultra Stars certainly are when they have heat stamp on them.
Well, the Ultra Star ones with the sticker stamps, I hate those.
They're off, yeah.
I don't like playing with
They're
those.
UFA actually messaged us about that. Let me just see what they said. They did say that the hot stamp process does create a slightly different disc than other methods. You guys.
So I'm curious about what the Aria is going to feel like with the
I've
heat stamp.
thrown the HSNI discs. You're not gonna have a problem.
Okay, cool.
That's what
I'm excited for the Jawbreaker Z Flex Swirl Aria to come out. Proto
245 gram, like
first run prototype beaded. It's gonna be crazy. Beaded. It's gonna be insane. I can't wait to have that collector's item. You might open one up and get what if you just get an Aria out of your Discmania mystery box over there?
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I've got the red and the black box here, so.
Well, I've never. I got enough discs. I can't convince myself to buy any more Frisbees.
Sort of related. I am looking at these messages that the AUDL sent us or the UFA. Their Instagram handle, they sent it through Instagram to the pod, and it does still say the AUDL. Are they not rebranded on Instagram?
I was wondering the same thing. They have not changed their handle on Instagram, and I'm not sure if that's because you can't change your handle on Instagram or if they don't have the handle they want. I don't know. With an account that big, you got to be careful that you don't screw yourself because I mean, they have a lot. I don't know how many they have, but
yeah, you can't start over. What do you think about it from the perspective that now there's just going to potentially be more than one disc manufacturer in Ultimate? Like, where do you think that'll take?
That's only for that's only a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I think it's naturally monopolistic because everyone wants to play with the same thing. But like, to me, the discs are so close to one another that, you know, if this puts pressure on either to like be more competitive with pricing or with sponsoring, you know, tournaments or things like that, that's money back into the sport. I think it's good. We've seen that be extremely healthy for the development of disc golf.
Yeah.
Right. And potentially individual branding, marketing.
100%. I mean, Discraft has, I don't want to say they've like dropped out of Ultimate, but like the investment in Ultimate has been way less since the pandemic, and understandably so. But like when they're not really doing anything to like, you know, start sponsoring tournaments again and stuff since the pandemic, because they've grown so much in disc golf and so much of their energies in that side of their business. Again, it makes complete sense, but like it has cracked the door, I think, for, in this case, UFA to kind of have their own Frisbee, and like, could they get their discs to start to be used by high school, college teams? I mean, the Aria could never figure it out. And Aria was launched by elite Ultimate players. And they had their little photo shoot video thing in Seattle back in like 2017 or something. And that never really took off. And They're perfectly good discs though.
Yeah.
Yeah, people almost
I like 'em.
scoffed at when that video came out in like 2017. They're like, "What? Why would we ever?"
Yeah.
And I think people even did that, myself included, when the news broke that there was going to be a disc. I was like a new disc. I was like, that seems ridiculous. Like, we're gonna have two different discs for club and for. And then
Right.
I was like, okay, it's just a Frisbee. Like, it's the same shit.
But yeah, like the NBA, I think changed its basketball contract a couple years ago from Spalding to Wilson or something like
Mhm.
that, and like
yeah.
it's fine. Players have to adjust a little bit.
Should we ask Charlie one final question and let him go? Maybe Kins, how about one of these ones that you sent me yesterday? What do you think?
All right. Well, then I would ask, being in both spaces, what
Okay,
would?
we'll let Kins just go.
Wait,
Go
what?
ahead,
Did you
Kins.
say
Nothing.
Quinn?
No, I did say you, but I just love how it doesn't matter what I say. You'll just do what.
I got so
Whatever's
many
on your
things. I'm so ready. Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, since you are in both ultimate and disc golf, like when you compare both of them, like what are the pros of when you cover disc golf? What are the negatives, and what are the pros of like when you are covering ultimate, and what are the negatives?
I think what's great about Ultimate is that we can really be like a hub resource for the sport, and like whether you're watching, reading about strategy, reading about a tournament, like we can be the locus of activity. And that comes with kind of a pressure to like make sure that we do a good job and that we try to grow sustainably and don't burn ourselves out or let it die off, because I think Ultimate was in a little bit of a scary spot over the last couple of years in terms of, and I mean, there's still a lot of work to do post pandemic, but just like participation is down, and like, how do we come back from that? I'm like, I really want to have Ultiworld be like a positive presence for like rebuilding the sport again, and kind of going into a new phase of growth as USAU kind of enters its new strategic plan and all this. The thing about disc golf, it's cool, is it's like completely the opposite, where it's like we're never going to be the hub of all activities. So it's like being more of just getting to be an outsider in a way that I'm not anymore in Ultimate, and get to be involved in a sport that's growing super fast, which is also really exciting. So it's been interesting to kind of like be in Ultimate while it was felt bigger than disc golf, and watch disc golf pass it and have a hand in both. I think the storyline components of disc golf make it a lot easier to talk about. Like, I couldn't do 2 shows a week on Ultimate of podcasting. What is there to talk about? It's like we'd have to be digging,
especially with tournaments. It's like,
we'd have to be digging super hard to find something to discuss. And in disc golf, like 2 shows a week is almost not enough sometimes. So it's cool to have the experiences of both. But like, the build up to the big tournaments in Ultimate is really exciting, and it's always going to be that way. There's always going to be the one thing that matters the most, whereas disc golf's a little flatter and there's like more constant activity.
That's kind of up for debate. I don't know. Or is Worlds the
Worlds?
big...
Worlds. I'm not going to open this box again, but Worlds is still the one.
Which one do you prefer to cover?
I like, commentating wise, I really like to commentate a really great Ultimate game. It's just there's more energy. It's like a little bit of a more condensed broadcast. It feels like there's more unpredictability because of the pace of the game. But from
What's
like,
your
week
most
to
favorite
week,
game?
disc golf is a little bit more dynamic and interesting. Just
What's
because
your
there's
most
more
favorite
going
game that you ever commentated
on.
off the top of your head?
I have I do not have a great memory just in general. I still
that
remember
pot you were smoking,
to be honest,
figuring out the
yeah,
Ultiworld
that's right.
design.
I still remember the UNC Oregon Stanford invite game from like whatever 2017 or something.
Yeah,
I don't know why
The
that
one where Elijah got like a big block on the
maybe
goal line on
it was like a
University.
super low turnover game, like awesome offense from both teams. Yeah,
I remember that.
I just remember that being really fun.
Which one do you
choice.
like more, USA Ultimate stuff or UFA stuff? Like, which one is more? Do you kind of enjoy, or
I like both for
pisses you
different
off less?
reasons.
That's smart to say.
I think the gameplay of the UFA is just a lot smoother as a viewer. I'm sort of getting frustrated at the lack of rule change pace in USA Ultimate.
They just
I think-
clarified the travel rule.
Yeah, which I think is interesting on its own. I don't know that it's necessarily like a better rule, but it's certainly saying stop slowing down the pace of the game. But there's just so many other things, like substitutions on timeouts is like such an easy thing that I think would be supported by players. I don't know why we haven't done it yet. And part of the problem is that the rules committee is like a bunch of old heads still who like are no longer playing the modern game. And I find it annoying that we have like people who like we should be asking current elite, and not that those people aren't represented, they are, but it's just like there's like too much stasis in Ultimate and people who want it to be like how it was 20 years ago. And it's like, it's not that way anymore. Like, let's update the game. And, I'm throwing this take out of nowhere, like substitutions on timeouts. I don't know how the average lower regionals club player would feel about that. But to me, it just makes sense. Like there's things we could do to make the game more strategically or visually interesting without really compromising the overall structure of play that people like about club. And we're just not doing them. So it's just frustrating to me that it's like the pace of change is way too slow in Ultimate on the USAU side.
And I think there can be different versions of the sport even under USA Ultimate.
Totally.
Okay, Charlie, we're 8 minutes past your hard stop here. So
Soft cap.
Soft, yeah. We're approaching hard cap here. How about one silly question from me from this thing that Kin sent me? If you if you were given a box of everything you ever lost, what's the first thing you would look for?
Oh my God. I don't know whether to take that as a metaphorical question or like physical possessions only.
No, it was like this Instagram short that had just like, it's like kind of like cheesy. That had a lot of really good questions.
Let me think. I think I gotta go with an ultimate. I gotta go with an ultimate answer. It was my senior season loss to Cornell in the game to go to nationals. That was my chance to play at nationals.
Yeah, you are taking a nice twist on that. So, you would change the course of that? Is that what you're saying?
I guess so. I think knowing what I know now and having been involved in kind of thinking about the game at a higher strategic level for a long time, I like see the failures from how we approached that game. We had basically no coach, so I would be like, I would know more how to
you've learned
change
a lot
the
since then,
path.
for sure.
Yes, not to say that we would have won, but we were the more talented team.
NYU 2011, you said?
2011.
Well,
Billy Katz, Hussein Carnegie, some really good players who still play top elite club.
Wow. On the NYU team.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that was a good team.
Hussein was my co-captain. Billy was a sophomore, first-year player, already awesome. Lou Wong, who plays mixed in LA. I don't know how much he's still playing. I'm trying to think if there's Denver people on that team. I don't think so. I'm probably forgetting somebody though. But yeah, we were good.
That's a good answer. I took it much more literally. The only thing I could think of was like this little stuffed gorilla I had when I was a kid.
That's a great answer. Like, yeah, I was trying to think of like physical things I've lost. I lost a
Mine
really
immediately
nice
went
hoodie.
to disc golf discs.
Oh yeah, I got too many to do.
Actually, I will change my answer. I recently lost my keys up in Breckenridge.
Oh, that's a good call.
Yeah,
skiing.
Your keys.
I don't know. It could have been skiing. It could have been taking the dog for a walk.
I lost my phone out of my pocket skiing. I forget where I was. It was in Colorado somewhere a couple years ago. But I had my Icon Pass app running.
Oh.
So then like my friends could see where I was on the map, and we like skied back down, and I found it.
I love that.
All right, I do actually have to go. So
Hard cap.
Just
went off.
Thanks so much for joining, and hopefully we'll
guys.
see you soon.
Yeah, sounds good. Looking forward to the 2024.
All right, peace out, guys.
Bye-bye.